Hi, welcome to my studio. I'm Marie Camenares, and I was asked by Elwood Library to do a beginner's demonstration on watercolor. So what we're going to do today is a scene, a picture that I took at the Sayville Marina, and I'm going to demonstrate how to do this with a beginner's set of watercolor on watercolor paper, and I'm going to take you through different steps with watercolor. Wet on wet, wet on dry, different techniques that you can use, and things that you could just use around the house, just ordinary objects to get a certain effect. So with that, let's get started. So this is the picture that we're going to be focusing on. This is from the West Sayville Marina, and it's a very nice scene of the marshes and the bay and the ocean in the background. And we are going to use it as a guide. We're not going to do an exact replication of this. This is just going to be our guide. And I have a variety of brushes that I'm going to be using. You'll need watercolor paper. This is our beginner set of watercolors right here. As you can see, I've used this many times, and I'll be adding to the blue with a little bit of ultramarine watercolor that I have. But you can just try a beginner set. You need a container of water, and this is just an ordinary plastic dish that you're going to mix some colors in, paper towels, and a different variety of all different kinds of brushes, and some toothpicks and other just household things that we're going to use to make certain effects. Okay, so I'm going to start out with just doing a little bit of ultramarine in my blue, because I'm a little bit low on that. So I'm going to get that ready. This is actually, let's try a little different color. This is a cerulean blue that we're going to be using here. And I'm just going to put a little dab of this in here. Okay, that's great. Also did find the ultramarine blue, so why don't we just get a little of that in there too. We can put that right in here. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is a wet on wet. So what that means is you take a brush, and I'm going to use a big brush here to cover a large area, and we're just going to wet down our whole paper. And as you can see, I did do a slight little pencil drawing of the scene, just giving me guidelines of where the horizon line is, of where the grasses are, and where the pole is. So I'm just going to cover that and make a nice sheen on the paper of the water. And while it's still glossy and wet, I'm going to come in with a nice watercolor brush. Watercolor brushes usually come to a taper, and they're usually wider on the bottom, and that allows them to hold more water in them. So I'm just going to dip the watercolor brush into the water. We're going to get a little ultramarine blue here and make like a solution, a nice solution with the paint to almost look like a very diluted skim milk. Now we're going to start at the top, and I have my board tilted ever so slightly just to help it along for the color to just run down the page. So I'm starting here with a little stronger color on the top and dipping my brush into the water just to help bring the color down. We want to bring it down to the horizon here. Just like that. We can put in a few more dots of color from the paint and just watch it run. And not to worry if it runs into the grasses or the pole or anything else. We want it to do that. In fact, we may even take a little bit of the cerulean blue, dip a little bit of water into that, and mix it both together and watch the magic happen. With watercolor, that's part of the fun of it. It mixes together on its own. It makes some really fun things happen all on its own. Okay, so that's just going to do its thing. And what we can do in order to give the illusion of a cloud in there, we're going to take a little piece of paper towel, roll it up in a little ball, and just tap it along. And that will even make it look like there's clouds in the sky down to the horizon. There we go. So okay, we've got our sky done. A little bit more clouds in here. And we can always come back and add more or take away more. Okay, the next line we have here is the water, which we're seeing right here. So I'm going to take a little bit more with the cerulean blue and just give it a little stronger color in there. And then moving along, we have the back grasses, the front grasses here, some lighter greens, kind of yellowy green and a darker green, and then the water again. So I'm going to make a decision, and I think I'm going to leave the center part, and I'm just going to go down to work on the water some more. And I think I'll use the cerulean blue for that. So I'll make a nice little wash, and I'll put it into the water right in here. So here's our water right in here. Bring it down. Make it a little stronger in here. And you can always take another brush and come in and do some little waves. By lifting off, this is a dry brush, we're just lifting off a little bit just to get the illusion of a wave in there. And we can always add more later too. Just like that. Okay, so we're moving on to the grasses. We've got an area in here that's darker and then lighter green, and then the grass is up in here. So with the grasses up in here, we're going to put a little bit of red and mix that with a little bit of brown. And we're going to put that right in here. And just drop some color in. And just watch it do its thing. Now with watercolor, what happens is when it dries, it usually dries a little lighter. So you can always go back in there and you can always make it darker again. Okay, now we're moving on to the green. We've got some nice greens in there. And I'm going to make another wash with my green. And just drop that in. I'm going right over where the pole is. It doesn't matter. We'll come back and put that in later. There's a little bit of lighter green, so I'm going to add a little yellow, or a little yellow wash in there. And put that right in here. Just drop some little color in. Okay, and then we have the darker grasses and the shadow in here. which I'm going to use with purple. And I'm going to just put that little line in here. So normally what we would do is have this dry and then come back and keep working on it, keep adding to it. What I'm going to do, just to speed things along a little bit, is I'm going to blot some of the water out. But as you can see, if you look real closely, you can see how nice this purple is going into the yellow, and the different colors are working with each other. So you can use a hair dryer to dry this more quickly, but I'm going to just blot it a little bit and then come back and work on it. Okay, so now this piece is a little bit less wet, and we can always work on this some more. Alrighty, we're going to take another brush. We're going to take what I would call a fan brush, which is this brush right here. I'm going to dip it in water, and we're going to take a little bit of the brown and just go very lightly up like this, just to give an indication of these grasses. And it kind of smooths out, comes down. We're going to go over that then with just a little bit of darker green, still with the fan brush. And just drop in a little bit of color. Just here and there. Grasses over here. Some grasses up in here. And you can see it's starting to come alive. And as the paper is drying, this process is basically a wet on dry, because the paper is drying, it's getting drier, and we are just applying a wet watercolor wash onto a dry paper. So I mixed a little bit of purple with a little bit of the brown right in here, and I'm going to add just a little bit of red to that, just to give it a deeper color. And I'm going to go right along here by the edge for those shadowy areas. Put a little bit down in here too. We have some waves, some reflection. We'll put that into the water from these grasses, like you see right here. That's what we're doing. We're going to go deeper on that. And just put a little bit into here too. Now, this is something I wanted to show you that you can also do just using some household items. I'm dropping a little color right in here. And watch what I'm going to do with it. This is like a little hors d'oeuvre thing. I'm going to push it up with that, and I can get that fine grass look. I can layer that with a little bit. Let's try a little orange in there. Drop a little bit of that in there. Just using some household tools, you can get really creative and get some nice effects. Some really nice fine lines of the grasses that you see right in there. Okay, I'm going to try a little bit more of that reddish orange color mixed with the purple, what we have the leftover wash in there, and I'm going to drop that back into here and do the same thing. Let's take a little fine brush, very thin, and I'm going to be adding a little bit of the blue, and I'm going to just put in a shadow right in there. There we go. There's our shadow. Now let's add in the pole. I think it's time to do that. Put these tools down, and I'm going to be very careful to do this. And you can always go back with a ruler and put it in. Goes into the water a little bit. We have our little bird sitting up there. And then we have another pole in the background that we'll put into. And there is a little duck down in here. We can do that too. Now we're almost done. All we need to do is just make this water just a little bit more wavy looking. And we can just come in with a flat brush and put in our waves. We can add a little bit of purple in there too. Don't be afraid to mix different colors in there. A little bit of green. And now we can go back and just fine tune everything. We could make this horizon a little stronger right in here. We can put a little bit of shadow down in here a little bit more into the grasses. We can take our brush, we can add a little bit more of the grasses that are here, just like that. Take a fan brush, bring it on up. This is practically a dry brush now, so we're just adding a little bit more of color into there, and a little bit more yellow for the front. There you have it. This is our Marina watercolor demo. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you will give it a try on your own. This is Marie Camenares saying bye for now, and thank you for joining me on this watercolor demo of the Sayville Marina. Bye-bye.